Now, this is something that I've tried to share on the channel for quite some time. Many of you know that I work at a lumber yard. I do retail sales for a living. And I've tried to share everything that I see from the boots on the ground perspective of what's going on within the lumber industry. And it's been in shambles for quite some time. Mill curtailment, shutdowns, inventory depletion has been running quite prevalent throughout this industry, and it has created quite the supply chain crunch within this industry as far as what it is that's available out there on a regular basis. Now, of course, we're not going to see the problems within that until we actually see the demand increase. And once that actually takes place, then we're going to start seeing the price. When I bring this subject up and I talk to people about it, a lot of times I will get pushback from people saying, man, if you would just step away from your little tiny area, you'd see something else going on. We're logging, we're milling, we're doing all this stuff. It's going crazy and gangbusters. You ought to come check it out. Well, I know the industry, not just from my own perspective, but I know it in a much broader sense. In the idea that I know mills, operations, I know distribution networks, I know other retailers out there, and I know what I am looking at to be real. Now, I had to go ahead and just pull up these articles, which was actually quite easy to find, to share with you about what it is that's actually happening within this industry. And really a good one to look at, like I look at framing lumber and like trim or flooring or cabinetry. That type of lumber is completely different. It's not even the same thing. They don't do the same operations. And so when I'm looking at lumber, I'm looking at softwood lumber as opposed to hardwood lumber. And now hardwood is just as much of an industry as the softwood industry is. And when you think about what it is that's taken place within the softwood industry, it's quite the crisis scenario happening when you think about how few buildings are taking place comparatively to what was happening. And that pullback in operations is quite impactful, and I've been trying to share that regularly. Well, the hardwood industry is somewhat of the same thing. And this article, I think, is incredibly telling that I'm going to share here with you. And I left all these links down in the description for you guys, so if you want to go and read the articles for yourself. Now, let's see here. Oops, sorry guys. Um, Before I get started, most of these articles and everything that I'm going to share with you is talking about the hardwood industries, but it's from all over the nation. So Arkansas, Tennessee, Georgia. It's like all over the southern part of the United States, but then it's up in Wisconsin. And then again, I'm in the Pacific Northwest. So there's like, the entire industry here, right? The entire country. Oops. Let's see here. Quincy, Louisiana. Interfor announced today that it is decreasing lumber production by 26% through the end of the year and is laying off 590 employees throughout the U.S. and Canada. I wanted to bring that up because that is actually something that is impacting here in my area, where the announcement of this pullback has started to impact the logging operations, and we're talking about this exact thing. So one of those I just wanted to share with you. Oops. Oops. Gee whiz, my computer is just bouncing all over the place here. All right. Where is this one out of? This is out of Tennessee. More than 450 hardwood companies and lumber mills, including 37 from Tennessee, have written a letter to the Trump administration requesting to be included in any future tariff relief programs to make up for the industry has lost due to retaliatory tariffs. Now, I think about that immediately. I'm thinking, okay, so the tariffs itself is now created this problem within these nations, or I'm sorry, within this nation in these lumber operations. Now, I was able to call out quite a while ago that there was going to be problems that we were facing, not just from tariffs, but just because of the slowdown in demand from our own production here in the United States, not being able to produce and be competitive. Like, I've been saying that for quite some time. I think this is actually saying it. Prior to 2018, hardwood lumber was a second most exported U.S. product to China. So going to China, hardwoods were the second most exported item. That is just incredible to think, right? That was prior to 2018. But the point being is that prior to 2018, right, the idea that we were a competitive nation at the time was still available. That was kind of the point. Now the tariffs are a cover up for that. And it's proven here just in a little bit. Let me see if I can get to it here and share with you. All right. Let me read some more of these quotes here. Let's see, second product of China behind only soybeans. When China imposed retaliatory tariffs that year, American hardwood exporters lost half their market share to competitors in Russia, Thailand, Malaysia, and elsewhere. Even once those tariffs receded, regaining those markets has proven extraordinarily difficult. And now that's the point of it, right? Once you increase, or once you have put yourself in a position in which that you increase the tariffs, which makes you pretty much no longer competitive or forces your trading partner to find other trading partners, bringing those trading partners back is very difficult. Ultimately, the only way to do it is to have the best price possible. But if all your trading partners went out there and found other people to trade with, and those people are going to be more competitive than you are, there's no way you can possibly bring it back. Let's see here. Kruger, co-founder and vice president of Kruger Lumber and Validers, Northeast Wisconsin. See, now this is up in the northern part of the country. Says demand is down, prices are way down, and the consequences can be found by seeing all the sawmills and the lumber companies going out of business. We have cut down production and we are at risk. You can go through the news and find quite a few sawmills that have gone out of business. Some flooring mills have gone out of business. The wood market is very depressed. Now again, this is coming out of Wisconsin area. Georgia. Here's a Georgia article. This one's pretty good. This is talking about the pulp industry. This is one that was actually taking place for quite a few months now. We reported it on it a while ago. But still, here it is. This is more than 1,100 jobs. This is coming from Harper told me. Who's Harper? Let me see here. Taylor Harper from the Commissioner of Agriculture. He says this is more than 1,100 jobs. But he goes on to say this is the tire shop, the truck dealership, mom and pop restaurants. And I think that's another thing to remember is that when this industry has so many jobs attached to it, it's not just the jobs that are directly affected by the industry itself, it's all the residual ones, right? Like I think about all the mechanics that are needed for working on logging equipment. But if the logging operations shut down, then all those mechanics go out of business too. Now, granted, a lot of them have their own shop, but the mechanics themselves who are not loggers, they're going out, all the stuff that goes along with those equipment and maintaining that equipment, all that stuff goes out of business. And then all the money that the people themselves are earning at the mill and where they spend that money, all of it starts to disappear. Goes on to say 4.5 million tons of Georgia grown timber lost a home with these announcements. The That equates to about 70 logging crews in Georgia that don't have a place to take wood. They probably won't make payroll next month. You see the disaster scenario? Like, this is the same thing that I was essentially reporting on back in 2019 when all the mill operations were shutting down in the British Columbia area. Something of the same thing taking place here. This is a pretty good article. This is coming out of News Nation. We're suffering. Hardwood and lumber mills feeling the impact of the trade war. And see, now here's something very interesting about it because they always blame it on the tariffs, which is probably like the nail in the coffin. But essentially they were already going out of business, right? And when we think about it, from the first tariffs that hit, which caused everybody out there who was essentially a trading partner for the United States to go off there and find other trading partners. Regaining those trading partners does not become something that is easily done. And then on top of it, the only way to do it is to lower your prices. That way you can bring those trading partners back. But if you're in a situation when there's no way possible of lowering your prices, now listen to this. um, this is who is this? Chris Kazia. I'm not sure how to pronounce his last name. I apologize for butchering the name. He quotes here saying, "It's getting harder and harder for any steady business because nobody knows what's going to happen." Right? And he's referring to the tariffs. He goes, "It got heavily concentrated specifically in China," talking about his market. "There's other markets, but it got specifically concentrated in China. And so as the tensions have built in that in the well, I'm sorry, have built in tariffs and trade wars, we sort of got caught in the middle." Right? So here he is, he's blaming it on these trade wars. He goes, "We're one of the few industries that still sells our product at a price similar to the 1990s and 2000s, and we're in the 2020s," he said. "And insurance cost, fuel cost, electric cost, every cost has gone up, and our product price still is about the same because of the contraction of the market." Now, again, I think about it right there. This is the same reason why essentially the soybean farmers will have a difficult time as well, right? You will find a market out there. There is a market, but they can't increase their prices because now they're competing against other markets, other people who are doing the exact same thing that they're doing, only they're doing it for a cheaper price. So as your costs are going up because of the increased cost of insurance and fuel and electricity and all this other stuff, your exported product going out there to foreign nations are no longer competitive. You got to maintain your price because you got ever increasing amounts of competition who is willing to do it for the same price you're doing it for. Now, this is going back decades. This doesn't really have anything to do with tariffs. Tariffs is a nail in the coffin, for sure. But it's essentially a cover up for what is really taking place, and that is the Cantillon effect. As the domestic manufacturers get ever increasingly more difficult to try and compete against the foreign producers. Even if you are able to consume a bunch of your own product, you're not going to be able to consume all of it. And and in fact, I think the article coming out of Wisconsin actually says that exact thing. Here, let me go on. The reality of it is we are suffering from it and we need help. Mills are closing every day, going out of business, and once our business is closed, the skilled labor that is in it, they migrate off to different industries, and it's hard to get people to come back. Right? Totally. Uh, yeah, all these articles talking about it, and really kind of go back through many of the videos that I had done, it's not a surprise to see some of these things taking place right now. In fact, like, when you go and you think about just about any industry out there that was relying on the exportation of their product, like here in the United States, people look at timber and lumber as the same thing, and they're not, right? Lumber is a product of timber. Timber is its own product. It has its own demand. It has its own use, right? As far as how it is handled as an industrial product. It gets loaded up and sent overseas just as much as the hardwood industries do it. We also mill it up here in our own use, but we cannot possibly mill up and use all the trees that we have available. Right? We have to send ever increasing. We have to send bunches of it overseas in order to make the timber industry a viable industry. That's what a lot of people misunderstand. They're thinking, well, we just need to cut down more trees. And I'm thinking, no, it's not a matter of cutting down more trees. It's a matter of being competitive against the rest of the world out there who is also cutting down trees and selling them. If your cost of living is so high that you have to sell your trees for an incredible rate for a higher price, then there's really nothing you can do about being competitive except for lowering your standard of living or taking less of a profit. And the more and more of a profit you cut, eventually you just go out of business and you shut down operations. There's no point in showing up for work if you don't make if you're not making a profit. People say, oh, it's the greedy corporations, it's the greedy mills, it's all that other stuff. It's not. I mean, I would love to blame them. I mean, you can blame them in a lot of ways, and sure, I mean, it's a lot of fun to blame them. But if you don't recognize it from the underlying economic force of the Cantillon effect, I mean, he's just said it straight up, right in his own statements. We kept the prices the same from the 1990s through the 2000s, and here it is in the 2020s. And they essentially had to keep their prices the same because they're competing against the rest of the globe out there who is doing the same thing they're doing. Okay? How do you fix it? You can't. There is no fixing this. Right? It's understanding the current situation and why it's going down the way it is. The only way to really, I mean, I've gone over this so many times. The only way to fix it is to cut back on the luxurious experience. To not buy into foreign production, to start producing for yourself. See, somebody was arguing. It was, sorry guys, I don't even know. Here, let me close this down for right now. Let me just kind of go off here a little bit because I had it wasn't necessarily a discussion, but it was in the comments section at one point where somebody was calling me out saying, no, there's definitely a way that you could go back on the gold standard by revaluing gold and then, everything would be hunky-dory again. And I'm thinking like, unless you are producing the real assets here in the United States, I don't care what little financial game you want to try and play and rearrange the numbers. But if you're not producing it here, then eventually what you will do is export your money trying to import the stuff. And so unless you're producing real assets, and I'm talking about unless you're producing the couches and the TVs and the stuff that you're buying, all the things that are made in China and Thailand and Vietnam, if you're making all that stuff for yourself, then we have another story we can tell. But if you're not producing the real assets here in the United States, then what's going to end up happening is no matter what you do, you will export your money or you will lower your standard of living. That is it. That is the only two things that can happen. And to understand that is the key element to knowing that if you try to go back on a gold standard, you're going to export all your money. Now, don't get me wrong. I think I'm in a position in which that I think I could probably do pretty well, but I wouldn't know. Time will tell, right? I mean, who guess? Everybody thinks that they're doing it right. But to know that's the case, and you look at the products that we are selling in mass quantities, like soybeans and timber, and when you see the industry in shambles, when you see it deteriorating, when you're talking to loggers and truck drivers and equipment operators, and they're talking about how slow it is and how it's been slow for quite some time, and I'm thinking to myself, man, the more these companies go out of business, you think about it. One of them over there, what was it in Georgia? Was it Georgia talking about 70 logging operations, right? Like they better find somebody to a customer to buy the logs, but if the mills are shut down and they're not buying, then who's going to buy? Well, some foreign competitor out there has to buy it. Well, they get it cheaper from, from another place because you sell them too much. You sell them for too much. And I mean, I don't like the situation. I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, I wish there was something that we could do about it that says, hey, man, we can come back and we can be this awesome nation again with all these wonderful manufacturing jobs producing all the wonderful stuff that we could send out there to the world, and the world would start sending us their money. And I would think that that would be a wonderful thing to be a producing, saving nations and producing, saving nation and having the ability to have the real assets here and then having, you know, something that would be a more stable environment, one for my kids, one for myself, one for everybody else out there. I mean, I believe in that idea. There's no way in the world we're getting it back. Right? I mean, there's no way in the world. You can't do it because, of all the luxurious experiences. I had another guy telling me, it was just like, dude, you haven't gone anywhere. You just work at Lowe's and you drive a crappy old car. And I'm thinking, well, you want me to go dive into some luxurious experience so I can be in the same boat as everybody else? Or do you think that I should be loading up on assets that are going to be hopefully in the future, worth more than they are today and be paying me over time? Like, I don't know, what position do you think? I think a nice car would be much better, wouldn't it? I mean, like it's easy to tell which mindset people have when they put a superficial value on a vehicle and then the individual in the knowledge that they are trying to share. Like you really learn something about somebody when they do that. Yeah. Here we are in a position in which that we are witnessing the deterioration happening. We can blame it on tariffs. Like this is another thing. We blamed a recession on COVID. Remember the COVID-induced recession? So here it is. We were incredibly sick, about ready to fall into a pretty bad recessionary pressure built up over years of ever, like, I don't know how to even to put it. Like, what was it, the longest running expansion in history without a recession? I can't remember exactly what it was. It was like building up for like this devastating downturn. And then there was one blamed on COVID. And I'm thinking, no, we were about ready to have one anyway. It wasn't a COVID induced recession. It was a recession, and COVID was on it. Right? It was a regular recession that was going to happen. It was going to be incredibly painful of an experience for many people to deal with, including the Federal Reserve and the government, because there wasn't really anything other than a complete depressionary impact coming from the failure of money to be able to be circulating equally amongst the people out there. You have this concentration of wealth that happens, and now all of a sudden you got to figure out a way to try and get a stimulating effect into the lower end of the income holders of society, right? Like I don't know how else to explain it, but they were about ready to fail and they had COVID to cover it up. Is the bee with us? All right, and they used COVID essentially to cover it up, and I'm thinking, it wasn't a COVID-induced recession. Oh, the bee is in here with us. Come on, buddy, fly on out. And so when you think about what it is that the government was able to do with COVID in order to stimulate the economy, I mean, here they had the unusual and exigent circumstance to establish special purpose vehicles to bail out every corner of the financial market. Wow, that was good timing considering you didn't really have any excuse other than it was just going to be a really horrible event for most people, especially those on the lower income. Hey, you want to go out that window? All right, bud. Take your shot. It's like every single time I do a video, a bee flies in. Anyway, So when you think about what happened during COVID and you think, okay, so they were about ready to go into, we were, not they, we were all about ready to go into this recession that they didn't really have any way of using an excuse to bail it out. But then COVID kicked in, covered up the entire problem, sent the recession into motion, got blamed on it, and then used the unusual and exigent circumstance in order to bail out every corner of the financial market. And I thought to myself, man, that worked out really well. So they were sick as hell, and then they shot themselves right in the stomach. And then everybody goes like, "Oh man, look at this major gunshot wound," And I'm like, "Wow, yeah, I've been put you in the hospital, dealt with the sickness while you're in it, but you had this big old gunshot wound to the gut. All right, well, that worked out really well, didn't it? All right. I mean, I guess it saved you, right? Put you in the hospital. It's like, hey, you got to deal with this big old gunshot wound to my stomach. In the meantime, I'm kind of sick too. Yeah, right? But I didn't have any way of getting in here because, it was a self-induced sickness. Like it was like being basically loaded up on drugs and then trying to go to the hospital. And they're like, no, we're not dealing with you because you're a drug addict. All right. And it was like, oh, bang, no, I'm shot in the gut. It's the way I kind of saw it. I don't know. That's kind of a weird analogy. All right, excellent point about COVID. Well, it really was. Like, I'm sitting there wondering how it was John Williams was going to get his ever increasing inflationary scenario. He said it. The problem they needed to solve these days was the risk of inflation that was persistently too low rather than too high. And so what I'm thinking to myself, and I'm like, John Williams, what in the world do you plan on doing to get elevated inflation? I mean, you can't print the money to do it because you just tried that and it failed you. Nobody realizes that was a major problem for you because you try to cover it up with this really funny, jargon and lingo that you use, but it was all telling inside of the speech, monetary policy strategies for a low neutral interest rate world given November of 2018. And so when you think about some of the things that he was talking about inside of that speech and how it was that they were desperate for an inflationary scenario and had many ways and ideas of how they were going to come up with this inflationary scenario, all of a sudden, bang, COVID kicked in and they were like, oh, look at that, guys. Total inflationary scenario. We don't even need to come up with a makeup strategy. They got it. There it is, right there. COVID. Dun dun dun. Yay, COVID. Right. And it's sad to think about it when it comes down to how horrible of an event that most people experience through COVID, the stress, the anxiety, the actual getting sick, the dying, complete unwinding of everything that they had planned and done, and then this absolute psychological screw up to a bunch of the little tiny kids who had to be raised in that kind of environment, all to save monetary policy. Right? Like, even if it wasn't done on purpose, it saved monetary policy. That sort of impact on the people and what it did and all the horribleness that came from it, regardless if it was done on purpose or not, during that time that people were feeling that, the central banking system was like, yeah, we're getting our ammo back. We're getting the interest rates elevated. We're getting the neutral interest rate elevated, right? We're getting away from the lower bound of zero, which was a major problem for us. We got stimulus packages based on the unusual and exigent circumstances of COVID. Man, there has never been anything better for the central banking system during a time of crisis than something like that to happen. They were not scared. They were happy as hell. That's what's sad about it. Like, they don't talk about how wonderful of an experience it is. They talk, well, the horrible down of COVID, and they talk in those sort of manners, but they were damn excited to have an inflationary scenario of that of COVID. I mean, you think about it, they had an entire makeup strategy to let interest rates or to let inflation run extra hot, extra long for an extended period of time, and then didn't need it. It became irrelevant. I mean, it was funny. Even Powell just admitted that, like just a few months ago, that, well, COVID made the makeup strategy irrelevant. Here's one that was really funny. I'm just jumping all over the place, but there was like an interview where Powell said that, where COVID made the makeup strategy irrelevant. And if you listen to the crowd, there was a chuckle, like a chuckle amongst the insiders. They knew it. They're like, yeah, it sure did. Yeah, it sure did. It made the old thing like irrelevant, didn't it? That COVID made the makeup strategy irrelevant. Did people catch it? No. Nobody heard it. Not just the chuckle, nobody heard what Powell said. The makeup strategy became irrelevant. They had a strategy. They were going to implement it. COVID made it irrelevant. They didn't need to do it. What was that strategy? That strategy was to let inflation run extra hot, extra long for an extended period of time. It was going to make up for the fact that they failed to produce an inflationary scenario. That right there is probably the biggest missing pieces that most people did not incorporate into their understanding of the Federal Reserve. When they said that they were going to let inflation run extra hot, extra long for an extended period of time to make up for the fact that they failed to achieve a 2% target over the previous 10 years, even though they had expanded the balance sheet of 850 billion to over 4.5 trillion, failing to produce that inflationary scenario, and that they were going to let it run hot. And so many people missed it. They didn't, I don't know if they just didn't hear it, didn't think it, didn't believe it, or just thought that the Fed lost control. But the Federal Reserve was just like, dang, man, we had this whole idea for doing inflation and doing the work for us. Look at that, right? Lose control. They made up, make up strategy. They're making up for lost positioning within their monetary policy, considering that they were at the lower bound of zero. They were getting that back. And here's the unfortunate consequence of it. I mean, just look around at the ability for people to have like what it was just a few years ago, like the income that they used just a few years ago to try and make it today, right? You can see how fast it's deteriorating away. The paycheck to paycheck earners, like that's growing ever increasingly more. People who used to have like this really good job. I remember when I was a kid, like somebody would get a job, working at a mill or working logging or fishing or doing something, and it just appeared that they had a decent amount of money, right? They would go out and they were able to earn quite a bit doing these particular tasks. And in that, when I thought about it, it was just like, man, if they're able to go out there and earn like not only enough to get like a big old truck, but then be able to have like the house and all the other stuff, like those are big time working good jobs, right? That's a good manufacturing job, production job right there. But here it is, you're watching it fading away quickly, right? And every single day I'm hearing more and more about how difficult it is. And I'm watching people who are loggers who are still, make a decent amount of money, but trying to make a decent amount of money in the area that they're doing it in, especially here in the Pacific Northwest, in the area I'm at, it becomes very, very difficult task. It's no longer the job it once was. These, jobs that were good pay, right, are turning into paycheck to paycheck jobs. And there's going to be more and more of those going into the future. It's the only way to compete, because there's competitors out there across the globe who are going to do the same thing you're doing, but they're going to do it a whole lot cheaper. Yeah. Let's go check out the super chat. Okay, we got Bob. Thank you so much with the $5. The point of the system is what it does. The thing is the point of the system is whatever one that you have given it meaning to do. Like if you give it a meaning that the point of the system is to hold you down and deteriorate your life and to keep you from success and all that other stuff, then that's most likely what you're going to end up finding from the system, is that exact thing. But if you just kind of look at it for yourself and it was just like, well, I mean, I'm going to have to make my own system and I have to participate within that system and I can have myself excluded from that system if I just really think about how it is that I could do that. And then you position yourself in many ways to deal with all the different scenarios that you think could possibly happen out there, and not thinking that any single one of them is going to be the one occurrence, except for the one that is happening today, and that's the one you have to deal with. And so giving it the meaning that this is the best that I have right now to deal with, then that's really the best approach to it. Because if you look at it saying, oh man, it could be way better, you'll be waiting forever for it to be better. It's not going to get any better. This is it. This is now the time to look at it as the best it could possibly be. Was it better in the past? Sure. Was there problems in the past? Yep, you bet. Is there going to be issues in the future? You know it. But if you just deal with it in a way that says, man, I can handle this stuff that is happening because other people are doing it, right? See, that's like kind of the key to it, is to understand that there's an energy of success that you can be in. And all you really have to do is just look at other people who are succeeding right now or attempting to succeed and think, man, what is it that they got going on that allows them to not have that worry of failure that I am now possessing, that's keeping me from actually pursuing the things in my life that I should be? Like, what is it about them that they don't have that sort of feeling? Like, do I have to go over there and pound it into their head to tell them how much of a conspiracy theorist they should be in order to not actually pursue the things in their life that is making them successful? Is that what I should be doing? I mean, I think about this all the time, man. It's just like there's so many opportunities out there for successful people to actually make it today, but they just look at the world and they say, "Oh man, what a chaotic hellhole of a experience," and they don't even attempt to try. Yeah, and I think, well, there's my competition. That's the competition right there. All right, Stephen, 499. Thank you so much. What if you move to a manufacturing country and try to escape the Cantillon effect? Well, I don't know if you can necessarily escape the Cantillon effect since it's always ever present. I think you can position yourself in certain areas in order to take the best advantage of the idea of what is happening with the Cantillon effect, and you could probably find that happening right here in the United States. It's not like the United States doesn't produce. We produce a lot of stuff, right? We produce a lot of stuff and we export a lot of stuff out of this nation. That's like kind of, I think, a big misunderstanding that people hear me speak and then like maybe like have internalized it to the point that they say like, wow, the United States isn't competitive, we can't do it, that means on all products. That's not necessarily the case. We produce a lot of really good stuff and we export a lot of good stuff. The problem that we face is that we import far more than we export, like far more. And so when you're importing far more than you're exporting, what you're doing is you're importing stuff and you're exporting your money. And so when it comes to like the Cantillon effect and trying to escape the Cantillon effect, it's more about finding the highest paying industry in the lowest cost living environment. Right. And that can happen right here in the United States if you're like, like to do your research and look for a job that you can do in those particular areas. I mean, yeah, or figure out how to become more industrious in the area you're in. Right? Like there's no escaping the Cantillon effect. It's ever present and always. And so you just have to learn where it is you are in that position. Like there was a time when having a good manufacturing job would have been awesome. Like everybody could have just easily gone and got one of those things, been, I mean, just somewhat disciplined and being able to like be very successful at doing that with a decent outcome in life. The retirement and all the other things that go on. That's wonderful in life to experience. And that could have happened from that good manufacturing job when we were a manufacturing state. But trying to escape that is going to be very difficult in the sense that how do I have and maintain this 1 8 hour a day manufacturing job? Where do I go to have that sort of experience in my life? And I think to myself, why would you want to go anywhere else? Just become more industrious. Like I know it sucks, but I mean, it's like work harder or, whatever, require less. But you can become more industrious and then to stay in the area you're in, right? You just got to match the living, the cost of living that's increasing, knowing why it's happening. And then like for me, example, like I had a regular day job that when I started, If I was in the position I am in today, back when I started 30 years ago, then I would be like not worried about trying to find. I would have had like my retirement taken care of, like, or I mean I would have been building that up in a way that I wouldn't have been worried about it. I would have had all the, like, the house and the kids and all the stuff. It was like a good living wage. Good, like a good living wage. I could have a new car, all the stuff, right? But now the position, like it really, I mean, it's a good job, don't get me wrong, and the area is expensive. It's the 10th most expensive area to live in the country, from populations of 10 to 50,000 people. So it's not a fair example to like blame my job for not giving a living wage. They give anywhere else in the country would be awesome, right? But here it doesn't necessarily work out too well. So I have to do something else. I have to pursue more of my life to try and acquire the things that I need in order to have a decent life here. Yeah. It's not I don't have any other choice. Like, I wish there was a way that my day job would be enough. And then I can just not think about anything else and just do the day job. But that's not the way it works, right? And as much as I wish it to be another way, I don't even try to think about another way that it could be. This is the way it is, and it's okay because I like doing what I do. So it's just like I just figured out things that I like to do, pursued that in a way that I tried to be the most useful and helpful I could possibly be, and by doing that, I'm able to pay my bills on time. All right. Some productions, such as textiles, are restarting in the U.S. However, this largely due to applying new technology to the industry. And I mean, again, it's not like it's the trade deficit that is the problem. It's not necessarily the idea that we can't bring manufacturing back, because I think a lot of times people hear that and they're like, "Oh, dude, they're already doing it. They're right here. Here's an example of them bringing manufacturing back." And it was just like, yeah, but they're not going to be able to bring it back in any kind of meaningful way. That's the problem. Like, bringing manufacturing back in a meaningful way to the point that we actually flip the trade deficit and we're in balanced trade, that isn't going to happen. And even if it was an attempt to do that, and were somewhat successful in that progression towards that sort of idea of balancing out the trade, what would end up happening from it would start to create a dollar crisis scenario, as the dollars that would typically go out there to the world to be used to pay off the dollar denominated debt would then find itself being very limited, as the production of the United States would no longer, or the production of the United States would, for one, be enough for itself, but then on top of it would not be demanding that of a foreign nation. Therefore, the dollars would not be leaving the United States, and those countries out there who are relying on dollars to do transactions and to pay off their dollar denominated debts would then have to seek dollars somewhere, somehow, from someone, right? And that would create problems within, the global economy in itself. Still pretty windy out. I thought the storm was going to be passing. All right, 45 minutes into it. You guys want to keep going, or you want to call it quits? I thought it was a pretty good. I just wanted to share a bunch of those articles and talk about the lumber industry, and to pretty much share what it is that I've been sharing with you the entire time. And, we can blame it on tariffs all we want, but I honestly, like, I think that's just more being used as a cover up, so that when people say, "Oh man, look at what happened to tariffs did to the lumber industry, totally destroyed it," and I'm thinking, well, the lumber industry was already on its way out, because we're just not competitive to keep up with the production of the rest of the world and what they're doing. So we can blame it on tariffs and then ease the pain of the actual problem, because if people really were to understand it in that fashion, they'd probably lose their mind. Like, if they were to realize that they were losing their industry, not because of tariffs, but because of just the natural consequences of just being in a rich country like we are, and having moved into luxuries and being uncompetitive, if they were to look at it that way, then they would become hopeless and pissed off. This way, they at least think they have something to blame it on. Oh, we don't blame it on these tariffs and everything that's happening there. But I mean, that's like it's. I mean, you can blame it on tariffs, but that's not the deal, right? The problem is that you're no longer competitive, and trying to trying to swallow that bitter pill would be much harder than swallowing than like just taking a shot of the tariff. you know and I think that's really how a better analogy to look at it, right? Because most people can't handle the idea that their industry is literally hopelessly going away. And because they just they can't be competitive against the other people. Here we go. I want to hear Simon's conjecture on what would happen if the masses understood the Cantillon effect. Well, okay, so if the masses understood the Cantillon effect, I mean, I don't know if it would necessarily really make that much of a difference, as most people would really have to think, okay, why would I even try to understand the Cantillon effect? Like if I told you from the very beginning, right, that if you move into luxuries, you will die, right? Because that's essentially what's going to end up happening. The move into luxury is the inevitable decline. Right. And so to understand it in this fashion, then there would be nobody producing anything new unless you were going to be selling it to a foreign competitor. Right? To a foreign, not even a competitor, just because they're not even competing. You're not even buying from them. Right? You're not buying and you're not buying from them. You're just exporting it all. And I mean really you could probably build it for yourself just fine. Right? Like that part of it, that would like you can build your own luxurious experience within the confines of your own nation. But the moment that you start exporting that production and start increasing your money, right? And then you start increasing your luxurious experience by buying that of a foreign nation. Because what's going to end up happening is the prices are going to start increasing. As those prices increase, there's going to be a foreign competitor that says, hey, yo, I can build that same thing that you're doing. Maybe not quite as good, but I could do it far cheaper. And this will start to create the separation between the separation will happen regardless as long as you have new money coming in, but this will really start to create the separation between the rich and the poor, because this is going to start increasing foreign production into the country and exporting the domestic manufacturers. So even if people were to realize it and know it from like a childhood experience, then their mind would have to turn to the idea that I don't want anything new. Now, is that the mindset of a human being? Like, I like having new things. Like, I buy new stuff at times. I'm a consumer. I, like that, the idea that you don't want new things. Like, I know that driving this old 97 Suburban gives me the ability to put money into investments, 401ks, Bitcoin, the house, whatever. Driving an old 97 Suburban is saving me a lot of money, and I know it is. But I could have the luxurious experience of go buying the new whatever. How much do they cost now? Like $100,000 for a Suburban or some stupid thing? I don't even know how much they are, right? So I could go get this really big, beautiful, awesome, decked out, all the wonderful things inside of it, get this wonderful Suburban truck, and then tell people, oh, I can totally afford this, and be absolutely right about that. And then cruise around looking awesome, and everybody would be like, oh, dude, look at that guy. But then I would have nothing saved for the future. Right? How many people take it into consideration? I would much, much, much rather drive a 97 Suburban and load up on assets as much as I possibly can, because I screwed up my entire life to the point now that I really don't have any other choice. And if I screw it up any further, then I'm going to be in a world of hurt. Right? See, that's me personally talking, but how many people take it into consideration that the 97 Suburban should have been the entire time, regardless of anything that happened inside of their life. Like they could have, 18 years old, did it smart the entire time, have $1 million, have no expectation whatsoever that they will go out there and buy a new vehicle. They will be totally happy with that old truck and continue with that mindset going into the future. Everybody doing that. Like, does that make sense? Of course not. It's not human nature to do that. Like, even I myself have found at times, I'm thinking, man, I'm tired of having the old truck. I want to drive something really nice. And I go start shopping for vehicles and I can just get that feeling, It's just like, oh man, yeah, no, that $30,000 ain't enough, man. I got to get the nicer one with the V8. No, not that, the better one, the bigger package. Next thing you know, you're $56,000 into this Camaro. And it's just like, what in the world? You know, not going to do it. Turn off the phone, go back to, go back to doing what you were doing. For the future profit consumption. Okay. Here. Tariff is a joke. Where oligarchs forcing me to pay for industry comeback. They made billions laughing and me working, dude. Must pay in taxes and prices. Me, I never felt need for new truck. Maybe when I was like 15. Yeah, that's true. Who was that? Chili shot? You don't want to be a baller and push the Escalade. If you don't feel good, your life will suck. Absolutely. Here's the thing. The more I realized it, people feel exactly what it is that you feel about yourself. Right? They don't feel any differently than the way you feel about yourself. And so if you feel like, you're incapable, small, insignificant, not worthy, all the other stuff for them, man, and you carry yourself with that sort of energy, everybody else around will feel that exact same thing. And they will think of you exactly that way. You know? I mean, I don't know how many times people have told me that, you know, why are you so loud? Why are you so joking around? Why, whatever. And they ask, how come I carry this high energy about myself everywhere I seem to go? And I'm thinking, I don't do it everywhere I go. I do it where I'm comfortable. And sometimes when I do it, I can pull it out on purpose anywhere I want, whenever I want, and I can get up on stage and do it and make it happen. And it's a wonderful experience when I'm out there feeling it on stage, presenting or entertaining or acting or doing whatever it is that I'm doing out there. Carrying that sort of experience is unique, that I absolutely love, and I enjoy doing it. Yeah. Most people don't actually go out there and try for anything that's in their life that, is unique to them. They always want somebody else to kind of fix it for them. Say, hey, make my job worthy. And I think to myself, are you not feeling worthy as it is? Do you not feel it in yourself, like that everything that I do is a benefit to not only myself, but then the people around me also get to share in that experience? I think to the people who tell me, man, why are you so loud? Why are you so obnoxious or whatever? Not that I hear it all the time, but I've heard it in the past. And I think to myself, what, are you jealous? You can't do it? You can't turn it on and make it happen? See, if you could do what I could do, then you would be doing what I do. But you can't do it. So you don't want me to do it either? Yeah. Tells me that I should more of it. All right. Everyone has a choice to be a badass or a slough. You're somewhere just a bit above slough. All right. Taxes on cannabis in Michigan are about to go through the roof. I like that stuff. Your life is as good as a relationship you have with yourself. That's so true. I mean, it's just the way it is, man. I mean, when if you can't see it in yourself, then there's certainly nobody else who's going to see it in you, and that's that's just really how it goes down. Um, it's funny because even so much as like getting up on stage and doing a presentation, there was a time in my life that I thought, man, it would be so cool to be able to share my thoughts and ideas on stage with an audience, like in front of like a big group of people. And I thought about that way, way, way before I ever even started the YouTube channel. Uh, it was way after the YouTube channel had started that I got the opportunity to do it. And then I got several more opportunities from several different places to do it. It was just amazing that I got to have that experience, even though I thought about it way long time ago and had no idea on how it was that I was going to get there. I just know that every single thing that was presented or offered to me as an opportunity to get one step closer to that, I took it. Even though I didn't like, even when George was just like, hey man, you want to go down to Houston to go speak at the Rebel Capitolist? I'm like, whoa, me? You want me to go down there with all people, dude, and all those famous, you want the uneducated economist up on that stage? And he was like, yeah, absolutely. I can't think of anybody else who I'd want to talk lumber than you. And I'm like, okay. Yeah, let's do it, man. Right? And I had no idea what I was about ready to get myself into, but it was an awesome experience, and I was able to do so many more things after that. How late do you guys want to go? If you want to keep going, hit the like button, get it up over 100 likes here in the next few minutes, and we'll keep going. Otherwise, we'll call it quits at an hour. YouTube must have banned you. I'm guessing. I don't know. Sometimes I get like a nice algorithm boost, but for the most part, yeah, YouTube isn't really big on spreading my videos around. But then again, I'm not really big into like trying to push those sponsors. Like they are constantly like, hey, tag these products and do all these other things. And I'm like, I don't know. I just do the ad revenue. I don't. All right. I think like you, I bought 50K of Tesla stock. Instead of buying a Tesla, the stock is now 80K. Right? Yeah. I mean, yeah. Sending love from Chicago. Well, right on. Thank you. Why though? All right. Who's that saying that? Melissa. Let me go back up here and ask Melissa what she was talking about. I can't find anything from her. Okay, well. All right, cruising back down to the bottom. Okay, Gavin, I have 15-year-old car that I bought earlier this year, but I wouldn't deny anybody the choice of getting a luxury car. We all have choices. No, Gavin, I mean, I don't blame anybody for getting into luxuries, but people ask me, man, how is it or how come it is that we have the consequences that we are now facing? How come it is our, greedy rich politicians have good manufacturing jobs overseas so that they could become richer and more famous and more popular within themselves in order to have this wonderful experience of life like they do. And I think to myself, well, it's because of luxury. It's because of the luxurious experience. And really, like, to blame the politicians for it is kind of like, I mean, you can blame them, but it's not, that's more of like blaming a symptom. They're like symptoms of the issue. Like they wouldn't be there if it wasn't for the ever increasing amounts of new money that pours into the system. They just simply wouldn't exist, right? So it's not. It's like they exist because we pretty much allow it to happen, right? By even accepting the fiat currency within itself every single day, like we have I understand for a lot of people they just don't have a choice, and you're right, for a lot of people they don't have a choice, especially if you don't believe you have a choice, then you really don't have a choice. But even the people who do believe they have a choice, they generally look at it in such a negative term that there's really nothing that they could do to organize it in a way that the broad economy, like everybody else, would then be making decisions alongside with them, because it's very difficult to persuade somebody to say, become a sovereign citizen and whatever, a sovereign person, and get away from government, be free from government, and don't pay your taxes and don't get a driver's license and all this other stuff. And then you all of a sudden have like a bunch of people who are like, dude, you're just a whack job. But if you understood the principles behind that, you could position yourself in a way that you might be able to slip into that sort of existence if there was a need to, right? But if you don't even know it exists, or even worse, don't, think it's an actual, you know, crazy thought or some kind of made up fantasy or conspiracy theory, then, you'll never be able to use it to your advantage. That's for sure. Wow, you guys got it up to 100. Perfect. All right. American cars went downhill after the Model T. A foreigner looking at America, would you want the culture America has? A foreigner looking at America, would you want the culture America has? Huh. In the Spanish speaking only class. Hi, Simon from New England. Well, right on. Silver bar. One for you. Thank you for being here from New England. Unibody construction was the end of the auto. Modular, universal, upgradable, and open source is the only way. Push only products you use or would use. All right. What's your viewpoint on Bitcoin? RFK, what's my viewpoint on Bitcoin? I have very low expectations of Bitcoin. My goal is to get one, just have one on, one Bitcoin. I'm not exactly sure what it would be that I would want one whole Bitcoin for, but that was just kind of my goal in my mind, that's kind of what I envision. So I dollar cost average $50 a month every single, well, not $50 a month, $50 a week, but not always do I get the $50 a week into Bitcoin, but I definitely do it at least $50 a month. And I have been doing that for quite some time. It's worked out incredibly well for me. The Bitcoin portfolio is definitely swelled to the biggest position out of everything that I could ever possibly own, except for maybe the real estate in the house. And so I think to myself, man, that has been really awesome. So for that sense, Bitcoin has worked out really well for me. But what my expectations of it for the future, or being like some sort of like Bitcoin standard, or all of a sudden being like the currency of the future, I don't believe that at all, and I don't really think that that's going to be the case. I'm excited for Bitcoin only in the sense that if it does happen to go up to some extraordinarily high number, let's just give it like some kind of outrageous number of like say $20 million or something, and I have a half a Bitcoin at that time, that's going to be very cool. All right. Now, I could sell it, but I'll most likely borrow against it. Since you don't pay taxes on borrowed money and you're going to end up paying taxes anyway, I would borrow that money and essentially try to find assets that cash flow more than the interest that I would use on the borrowed money. And then I would just keep buying more Bitcoin with it, right? And then I would just kind of use it for that purpose. And that's it. I don't know what else. Like, I don't really have anything else to really, you know, I don't, I mean, I don't like it or hate it, and I have very little expectations of it. And so therefore, it's just kind of like one of those things that just sits off to the side. But it seems to be doing incredibly well. So when I look at it, I'm like, wow, all right. Well, I mean, all the other things that I study and do, whatever, and just so blindly just putting $50 into Bitcoin has absolutely just killed it in everything that I've ever done. So I'm like, yeah, yeah, I got to give credit where credit is due. Yeah. I mean, I really got the idea of doing $50 a week from Lynn Alden, who I asked point blank, how do I time Bitcoin market? And she says, you can't do that. Well, she said the best way to do it is to dollar cost average for at least 4 years. Right? If you dollar cost average for 4 years, she says there's never been a time in their economic model that you would be under. And so that's kind of what I've took to heart, and man, does it not work out well. All right. And I guess that's, what I have to say about Bitcoin. Bitcoin will be great while the Trump guy is in office. Tightening budgets and increase church attendance here. Beautiful, cool weather leaves changing colors, dark river and pond waters with reflection of autumn. What a great comment. Thank you, Silver Bar. One for you. If Bitcoin goes to 20 million, would you borrow against it really even still be a big thing? It would have essentially eaten the market cap of gold at that point. Well, we don't know that. And we don't know, and I'm just being very hypothetically speaking. I have no expectations of that, and I wasn't like saying this is my plan, or anything like that. I was just making a hypothetical statement, right? Um, so like for a lot of people, they have committed themselves to the idea that there is going to be like some failure of the dollar. And when I took that sort of belief, it put me in a position in which that I didn't really ever take any kind of chances in any investment, because I figured any investment that I would go into would be dollar denominated and it would end up failing anyway. So there was no point in doing that. The problem with going down that road is that I went directly into silver because there was nothing else for me to go into, because I just didn't believe that the dollar would exist. Well, over time, I missed out on a zillion opportunities, like bunches of opportunities to make a ton of money, to have positioned myself in a way where I wouldn't have to be working anymore, but no, right? I was absolutely convinced and sure that the dollar was going to fail, and by doing that, I ended up like really screwing up a lot of what could have been some really valuable time, right? So now taken in a position in which that if it fails, if everything fails, I'm cool with that. Like I already had that belief system locked in. I'm cool with it. Like, man, let's let it. I'm down for it. Let it happen, right? But most likely, we're probably going to end up continuing on because they're very clever at figuring out how it is to keep the system moving. And with the idea of digital component to the whole thing with tokenization and stable coins and all that, I mean, who knows what could happen? The idea of negative interest rates would be a very real possibility in a cashless society. There is so much that could possibly happen in the future that I don't try to say, man, this is the way it's going to be. You have to be in it for when this event happens and there's going to be this horrible experience. And if you're not in this particular position, you're going to find it like overwhelmingly chaotic for yourself. And I think to my, I know, I've been there. I've been there so many times, it's cool. All right. I got that idea and I got other ideas. All right, Mom. 4.99. Well, thank you so much, Mom. All right, lump sum, you make a little more usually, but since 2008 started, dollar cost averaging can't change now. Now Simon has to go longer. Yeah, because you guys, not only hit me with the super chat, but then got that hit that thumbs up, that like button, got it up over 100 and got it up to 109 people right now. So we're going to stick it out for just a little bit longer. The more you hit that thumbs up button, the more I stick around. The more you hit me up with them super chats, the more the questions get very interesting and supporting the uneducated economist. All right. Melissa says, I'm more interested why the India Police Department is following me. Or the Indiana. Sorry. The Indiana. Where are my glasses? What you doing, man? What you doing wrong? Okay. Real value is virtual numbers open for speculation. Well, no, like to me, it's real assets. Do you have access to real assets? When it comes down to it, food. Food is like one of the key elements to wealth. If you don't have food, you don't have anything. You'll give up everything you own if you are starving. It doesn't matter how much you think you got right now. If you have no food, you're screwed. So the idea of food is an incredible wealth that nobody really takes into like consideration. And if you're in a position in which that you have an abundance of food, or you live in a way that you can access abundance of food, you're like you got a position of wealth that is unlike anything anybody else has. Because again, if you have, I don't care how much many millions of dollars you might have, right? If you're in a position in which there is nothing to eat, nothing, nowhere, everybody around you has consumed everything up, it's horrible experience, you will give up all your money. You'll give it all up. But if you're in a position in which you never had any money to begin with and you can eat all you want, tell me how wealthy you are. Way more than the person who's starving with $100 million. That's for sure. The ability to acquire real assets. Food is a real asset. Being able to preserve that food is a real asset. All these people look at gold, they look at all the, stocks, they look at all this other stuff that's out there, and I'm thinking, well, maybe you can consider gold a real asset because you can hold it in your hand. But outside of that, it doesn't really have any kind of real value when you're starving. Okay? So when people are like, oh man, you got to have it to protect yourself during a chaotic time, and I'm like, what? No way. That ain't going to protect you. You're going to give it all up the moment that you're starving. It'll all be gone, and then you won't have anything. You have to figure out how it is that you're going to handle yourself through the times of starvation amongst the people out there with silver in hand. Not giving it up because you're hungry. You're not going to give it up until you're on the other side when you can then use it to really position yourself for the new experience of growth that should happen after the major downfall. I mean, I don't know how else to put it. Tom Hanks was wealthy on that island as long as he had Wilson. Mm-hmm. You can delete gold by clicking delete. Amazing how mushrooms can eat wood and produce protein. UE, if 1 million debt is created, $1 million, that debt in a closed system can be repaid because of the interest. But can money velocity potentially balance that equation? What? I'm sorry, I'm missing it. Let me try that again. If 1 million debt creates $1 million, that debt in a closed system can be repaid because of interest, or can't be repaid because of interest. But can money velocity potentially balance that equation? Um, I think I think like the bigger issue, I mean, I'm assuming yes that it probably could, but I think the bigger issue is not so much on whether or not you have the ability to be in a closed system with the currency and the interest rates and nobody outside of that, is that you don't produce enough of the assets within the closed system in order to maintain the elevated lifestyle that you are living, right? So if you're willing to take a depressionary hit and then only consume that of what it is that you produce within that nation, then yes, you can try and you know, try and have it as a closed system and only keep the system, keep the money within it. But even inside of that, you're right. The money velocity that moves around from the selling of goods and services will eventually start to concentrate the money into the hands of a few, and this will create a separation between the rich and the poor. There will be a rebalancing that takes place within it, depending on the amount of new money that continuously pours in. So if new money continuously pours in, you'll have ever expansion of inequality. But if you have it as a limited amount of currency that is in that closed system with everything that you could ever possibly need and produced right there within its borders, then what you would find is that it would be a concentration of wealth and a redistribution of it. Boom, 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 over and over and over again. Right? It would go into the hands of the most industrious people who would raise their standard of living, enjoy the fruits of their labor, separate themselves from everybody else, create the concentration of wealth, and then eventually create a depressionary effect within that closed economy that would force them to redistribute the wealth back out there. All right. I have to download an app. Who is this Melissa? All right. For sure a 90s Chevy. Are you talking about the truck? All right, cause cryptocurrency should be symbolic currency allowing for payments outside of the monetary system, but what it's become is like a real asset, a hard gold. Like hard gold. Yeah, I guess. Yeah, it's suburban. Suburban. The currency is an ocean in the internet only. Uh, damn keyboard. Okay. Let me cruise back up here a little ways. When I see homeless people, I always am reminded of how important food is. Walrus, you're absolutely right about that. Um, I'm about to carve pumpkins. That's what Freddie wants to do. I should go and do that with him. What time is it? It's 1:30. I think that would be fun for him to do. Clean truck, sir. Is the dash cracked? No, it's not cracked. It was used as a work truck. It has 166,000 miles on it. It's a bit dusty and dirty from being the work truck. There's no seats in the back. It's completely empty. It's pretty haggard for the most part, but it runs great. Um, Four-wheel drive. All right. Dang. Adam Apple doesn't have that. Okay. They don't get a lot of sun damage on cars on the coast. No, we really don't. Like, our damage is coming from people who drive their vehicles out on the beach, where you're, driving it out on the salt water. But for the most part, they don't salt the roads, and it does rain a lot. So as long as, I mean, I guess you keep it clean, then for the most part, you'll probably get a, the cars usually last pretty well as far as the body goes. Oh, hey, right on, Mom. Thank you so much for the 9.99. I meant to say thank you for helping me see. Have been buying successful rentals the last few years, and you and the Cantillon essay helped me see in the way to make it work for me. Well, thank you, Mom. I appreciate the 9.99, and it's really cool that you have looked at the Cantillon essay for a better understanding of the position that you need to take. And because I think anybody could do that, it's not necessarily just going into rental properties, but becoming a property owner is essentially the key to wealth. And it's not my choice. I don't really like it that way, but that's just the way everybody does it. And when I mean everybody, like everybody I know gets wealthy in real estate. Like that's how they do it. So, is there other ways of making it happen? Absolutely. And like who am I to tell people what it is that they should and shouldn't do? But when I see people who are picking up rental properties and they're doing it quickly and they are really enjoying that experience of it, I'm thinking to myself, man, that is it. That is like how it is that people really become successfully wealthy when they do that sort of thing. Now, me personally, I'm not necessarily excited about being a landlord, and I certainly don't like the property values here in my area, as expensive as they are. I don't even know if I could really afford a rental property here. But to have the ambition to go out there and actually do it, man, that is something I kind of dream about at some point in my life. Now, maybe it'll start with my house after I've raised my family and I rent this place out and I start picking up other properties, maybe in the future at some point. That might be an exciting thing for me to do. But when I see other people doing it, I know that it's possible. I know that it's, you know, available for other people to make it happen. And when I see it, it just gets me excited, just knowing that it's available, that it's possible. Right? Um, all right. Let's see. Have absolute shit here in the Northeast. Yeah. That's very cool. Let me close back down here. Okay, watch some videos online, get some chickens. Yeah, I've raised quite a bit of chickens. And I did that for a hobby, for a little hobby business for a while, raising and selling birds. All right. Rolling up next, a factory farm and a PGA golf tour cart. All right. You guys still having fun? What are we, an hour and 20 minutes into it? 244 people watching with 125 likes, $29.90 in super chats. Thank you so much for all that support, for hitting the like button, for sending off the super chats and commenting. By commenting, you are helping to grab the YouTube algorithm and send it around for more people to join in. So, are we calling it quits though? Are we good, guys? Any more questions, comments? All right. Melissa came into the chat like a cyclone today. I know what imagery is. 100,000 for Bitcoin, non-existing being numbers and computer system. It's the effect of Ukraine oligarchy wealth runaway. Wealth runaway. Thanks for the ear candy. Yeah, you bet, all nighter. I appreciate you guys hanging out, and I appreciate you doing all the hard work you do for the channel and all the channels, all nighter. I mean, I don't know. I forget how many channels all nighter is a moderator for, but that dude is busy. Like, he is everywhere all the time, and the connections that he has made is just absolutely amazing. I mean, it's like he should write a book on networking. I mean, really. Um, but thank you, man. I really appreciate you being here. What, 10 different channels he mods for. Isn't that incredible? Making sure that keeps the chats clean, adding to the conversation. It's awesome. Not all channels require a lot of time. Yeah, I think, yeah, I kind of require a lot of time, don't I, bud? I appreciate you, man. I really do. Just take a look at the course 6 months before invasion, Sudan growth from 2000 or from 20,000. I like to be a YouTube personality. Well, you certainly are, man. Will lumber quality improve? Well, James, this is okay. Somebody asked me about that the other day. They were like, well, yeah, but America doesn't produce decent lumber. And I'm thinking, what in the world? Of course they do. There's grades of lumber that you can buy, right? And even in the standard and better field, you can buy a premium grade or a lesser grade, right? So there is premium grades of standard and better where they're still stamped number 2 and better, like number 2, number 1 select structurals, right? And these will be mixed all within the same unit. And so when you go to the lumber yard and you say, hey, how much is it for a 2x4/8 standard and better? They're going to give you a price. Most likely, if you are asking for a 2x4 standard and better, they have gone out into the market and searched for the cheapest 2x4 standard and better unit they can find. Now, when that happens, the lumber can come in, very questionable, right? Like sometimes I've seen number 2 and better stuff come in that was not a premium grade that you would question if it was even number 2, right? Like this is like number 3 utility grade. But ultimately, it passes the grade inspection in order to be stamped a number 2 and better. Now, when you go for a premium grade, you're going to find stuff that has a far less wane, which is like a lot of times it will be referred to as bark wane. So it's the very edge of the tree that the board is now has exposed edge of the tree going, on the, they can be on 2 sides of it, depending on how close to the edge of the tree they get. But ultimately, this is called bark wane. Now, when you get a premium grade, you're getting something that has far less of those within that unit. Even edge knots or knot spacing can be, a whole lot less within these particular premium grades. Most lumber yards do not specify and particularly go for premium grades on purpose to stock because they are going for the cheapest thing that they can possibly get. So for example, when you go to like the big box store in my area, most likely you're going to find less quality of a lumber because they buy the cheapest thing that they could ever possibly distribute throughout the rest of their stores. Now, you come to mind, we have gone to the distributors out there, the vendors, and saying, hey, what brand and what premium grades are you carrying? Right. And then we can particularly choose between these what they have available. Like we can sometimes we don't have the availability to choose. It's just, you get what you get. But at times we can pick it, say, hey, what brand are you selling? What mill is it? What premium grades do you have? And then we can select what it is that we want to carry. And then people say, oh man, your lumber here is so nice. And it's just like, well, yeah, when you go through the effort of finding good lumber so that you can sell it to your customers, that's the reason why you end up paying a little bit premium for it. You don't have to search through it. You get all quality boards and it's worth the money. And so it's not just a matter of like Canadian lumber versus American lumber. It's how it is it's being purchased. Da, da. The DeLorean was stainless steel. What do you think of dollar cost averaging your money into the SP 500? It's simple and effective strategy that virtually anybody can follow. A strategy for everyone. I mean, if that's the position that you want to take within it, I certainly don't have any issues with it. I've dollar cost averaged, not so much over the last couple of years, but I did for quite a while into the total stock market ETF. It didn't do that great comparatively to the S&P. It did terrible comparatively to the S&P. But for a lot of people, that's an easy one that they like to choose and go with. I mean, I'm neither here nor there on that particular one. I mean, I think there's a lot of options out there, and if you don't really want to think about it, then that's probably a good way to go, right? If you want to think about it, it's still probably a good way to go about it anyway, even if you think about it or don't want to think about it. But I think it's just like ultimately trying to be in like a passive position in which that you are going to continuously put money into this sort of thing, then really you don't have to think about it, right? It's like there wouldn't even really be any point to doing it. It would be a waste of time. You should be thinking about other things, like starting businesses or doing something else like that. But all right, who will be smarter, quicker, will win, gain profit? That is why startups don't go public first. All right, if I was a baller, I would avoid the bubbles but dip in momentarily on the waves. America has some of the best products you can buy. Same with our government, best you can buy. Um, yeah, I would agree with that. Yeah, I would agree with that. Yeah. I mean, it's not like the United States doesn't have good products. I mean, I don't know anybody who really kind of says that America makes crappy products. I don't think that's necessarily the case. It's just that we just don't make enough of the products cheap enough for other people to buy that will offset our trade deficit. I think that's the difference. So we got 202 people watching with 140 likes. Thank you so much for hitting that like button. Do we want to continue this on? It's an hour and 28 minutes, 51 seconds into this thing. If you want to continue on, let's see if we can get it up to say 150 likes here in the next minute or so. If that's the case, then we'll continue on. Otherwise, we'll call it quits at 1 hour and 30 minutes. All right. Does Utah have the death? What is that? The death penalty? What is that? I don't know what you got going on there. All-nighter, thanks for catching the joke on the second part of that. Oh, I missed something. Oh, the government thing? True or not to be? All right. Come on, 2 more likes, guys. You got 30 seconds. Don't bury my story. Huh. All right, Gavin Andrews with the thumbs up. Thank you so much. All right. You guys are awesome. Thank you so much for being here, breaking down the things that are happening within the lumber industry so we can hopefully understand what it is that we need to do to position ourselves for the greatest outcome possible, considering that there are changes that are going to be happening within this economy that are going to be profoundly different from anything that anybody had ever experienced in their past. But we don't have to be scared of it. We can be very well aware of the situation so that we can deal with it most appropriately. And that's what we're doing here, discussing on the Uneducated Economist. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Links are down in the description. Uneducated Economist. You guys let me know.